It was a sunny Tuesday morning when police at the busy Lagos-Ibadan Expressway checkpoint stopped a gleaming white Range Rover. The car was too clean, too perfect for the dusty road. But what made Officer James suspicious was the phone call from an unknown number just 20 minutes earlier. "Check the white Range Rover. Something evil is hiding inside," the caller said. The car door opened slowly. Out stepped a man who looked like he walked straight from Heaven's Gate. Pastor Michael Grace wore a spotless white suit that seemed to glow in the sunlight. His shoes were polished like mirrors. His smile was warm like fresh bread. Around his neck hung a golden cross so big it caught the sun and threw light everywhere. "Good morning, my sons," Pastor Michael said, his voice soft like honey. "God bless you all. I'm rushing to a healing service. Many sick people are waiting." But Officer James was not smiling. Something felt wrong. The air was too thick. The man was too perfect. "Sir, please open your boot," James said firmly. Pastor Michael's smile froze for just 1 second. Then it came back even brighter. "My son, there's nothing there. Just Bibles and holy water. Please, let me go pray for the sick." "Just routine, sir. Open it and you can go." Pastor Michael reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick bundle of dollar bills, fresh and green like new leaves. "Take this, my sons. Buy something nice for your families. Let me go do God's work." The other officers stepped back. One shook his head hard. "We don't want your money, Pastor. Open the boot now." The smile died on Pastor Michael's face like a flower in hot sun. His hands started shaking, sweat mixed with the morning heat. They walked to the back of the car. The boot clicked open, and then the world stopped breathing. Inside, wrapped in white church cloth, were 3 human heads. Fresh, still bleeding. The smell hit the air like a slap. One officer covered his mouth and ran. Another dropped his phone. A third just stood there saying, "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus," over and over. The crowd that gathered screamed. Women fainted. Men sat on the ground with their hands on their heads because this was not just any pastor. This was Pastor Michael Grace, the man who built schools, the man who paid hospital bills, the man who prayed for presidents, the man whose smile could heal broken hearts, the man whose golden cross was now covered in blood. People cried on the streets. Some sat in shock, unable to speak. "Not Pastor Michael," one woman wept at the bus stop. "He prayed for my sick baby. He saved my marriage. He gave me a job when nobody would hire me," a man said, tears falling on his shirt. How can this be true? But it was true. And it was just the beginning, because those heads in the boot belonged to his own family. His wife Sarah, his twin daughters Joy and Peace, the same daughters he told everyone were studying medicine in America. The news spread like fire on dry grass. From the busy streets of Lagos to the quiet villages of Ogun State, everyone asked the same question. Why would a man of God do such a thing? But deep in their hearts, they were asking something else. If Pastor Michael could do this, who can we trust? The golden cross that once brought hope, now brought fear. The white suit that once meant purity now meant lies. And the man who promised to show them heaven had dragged them straight into hell. But this story didn't start with blood in a boot. It started years ago in a small church with a young man who just wanted to serve God. A man who was tired of being in the shadows while others shone like stars. This is the story of how good men can become monsters. How hunger for greatness can eat a man's soul. And how sometimes the devil doesn't wear horns and a tail. Sometimes he wears a golden cross. There's something for the golden cross and the white suit. His name was just Michael Johnson, a quiet man with big dreams and an empty church. His father was the great Reverend David Johnson, the Lion of New Life Gospel Church. When Reverend David prayed, the ground shook. When he shouted, demons ran. People said he could raise the dead with just his voice. David had 4 sons, and all of them became pastors. But they were not equal. First was Pastor John, the thunder voice. When he preached, people fell down like cut trees. His church was always full. Cars lined the streets for miles. Second was Pastor Daniel, the golden tongue. He wore expensive suits and drove fancy cars. Politicians came to hear him speak. His church looked like a palace. Third was Pastor Samuel, the quiet fire. He didn't shout, but when he touched people, miracles happened. The blind could see, the sick became well. Then there was Michael, the youngest, the forgotten one. Michael's church, Hope Chapel, had 12 chairs. On good Sundays, 8 were filled. On bad Sundays, only his wife and daughters came. While his brothers flew in private jets, Michael walked to church. While they built cathedrals, he prayed in a small room with a leaking roof. But Michael loved God. He prayed every morning at 4 a.m. He fasted every Friday. He read his Bible until his eyes hurt. He believed that if he was faithful, God would bless him too. He was wrong. The breaking point came on a Sunday that would change everything. It was the Great Unity Crusade in Abuja. All 4 Johnson brothers were invited to prove their power before thousands of people. 4 sick people were brought forward. 1 paralyzed man, 1 blind woman, 1 deaf child, 1 madman. The crowd waited. Cameras rolled. The air was thick with expectation. Pastor John stepped forward first. He placed his hands on the paralyzed man and shouted, "In Jesus' name, rise!" The man stood up and walked. The crowd exploded with joy. Pastor Daniel came next. He touched the blind woman's eyes gently and whispered a prayer. She opened her eyes and screamed, "I can see! I can see!" People wept with happiness. Pastor Samuel touched the deaf child's ears. The boy heard his mother's voice for the first time in his life. He ran to her, crying. Now it was Michael's turn. The madman was brought forward, tied with ropes, screaming at invisible enemies. Michael's hands shook as he placed them on the man's head. "Jesus, please heal him," he prayed softly. Nothing happened. He prayed louder, still nothing. He anointed the man with oil. The man just laughed and spit. Michael tried for 10 long minutes while thousands watched. The man got worse, pulling Michael's hair and shouting, "You have no power. You are empty, empty, empty." The crowd went silent. No cheers, no amens, just whispers. Maybe God didn't call him. Maybe he's not a real pastor. Maybe he's just empty. Michael heard every word, each one cut like a knife. That night, he sat alone in his hotel room and cried like a child. His own brothers avoided him at dinner. His wife looked at him with disappointment. His daughters were embarrassed to say he was their father. When they returned home, Hope Chapel felt even smaller. The 12 chairs seemed too many. People stopped coming. Even the church cleaner found another job. Michael's wife Sarah tried to encourage him. "God has a plan, honey. Your time will come." But months passed. Years passed. The church remained empty. One evening, Sarah sat him down. Her eyes were red from crying. "Michael, I can't do this anymore. The children are hungry. We have no money. I'm taking the girls to my mother's house." "Please don't leave me," Michael begged. "I just need more time." "Time for what?" Sarah shouted. "Time to fail again, time to embarrass us more." She packed her bags and left with joy and peace. The house became silent as a grave. It was a cold December night when Michael drove his old Toyota to the outskirts of Benin City. He had heard whispers about a man called Prophet Darkness. They said he could give power to powerless pastors, real power, the kind that made blind eyes open and crowds fall down. Michael didn't want to go. For weeks he fought the idea, but every morning he woke up to an empty church. Every evening he slept in an empty house. His brothers were on television. He was forgotten like yesterday's newspaper. The hunger for greatness ate at his soul like termites eating wood. Prophet Darkness lived in a small house surrounded by thick bushes. No streetlights, no neighbors, just darkness and silence. The door opened before Michael could knock. "I know why you're here," said a voice from the shadows. A man stepped out. He was tall and thin like a stick. His eyes were deep black holes. His smile was cold like morning dew. I want power," Michael whispered, his voice shaking. "Not church power," Prophet Darkness said. "Real power, the kind that makes people bow." Michael nodded, his heart beating like a drum. "Then you must pay the price." "How much money?" Michael asked. Prophet Darkness laughed, and the sound was like broken glass. "Not money, young pastor. Blood." Michael's legs went weak. "Blood? The spirits that give power, they don't eat rice and beans. They eat love. They drink the blood of those who matter to your heart." Michael tried to run, but his feet wouldn't move. "Think about it," Prophet Darkness said. "Your brothers have millions of followers. You have none. They have private jets. You have nothing. They are respected. You are laughed at." The words hit Michael like stones. Each one was true. "I can give you everything they have and more, but first you must prove you want it."
"What do you mean?" Michael asked, though he already knew the answer would destroy him. "Bring me someone you love, someone whose blood carries your heart. The spirits will taste your sacrifice and give you power beyond your dreams." Michael ran that night. He drove home crying and praying, asking God to forgive him for even listening to such evil. 3 months later, he returned to Prophet Darkness.
"I knew you would come back," the man said, handing Michael a black bag. "The tools are inside. The ritual is simple. But remember, once you start, you cannot stop. The spirits will always be hungry." Michael took the bag with shaking hands. Inside were things that made his stomach turn. A knife, a bowl, strange powders, and instructions written in blood-red ink. That night he called his cousin Peter, the only family member who still talked to him. "Come help me with something at the church," Michael said. "I need to fix the roof." Peter came because he loved Michael. He came because he remembered when they were children, playing soccer and sharing bread. But Peter never went home. Michael buried what was left in the church basement. That same week he stood in the pulpit and spoke with a new voice. A voice that made people stop walking on the street to listen. Miracles started happening, small ones at first. A headache disappeared. A small cut healed instantly. Then bigger ones. A woman who couldn't walk for 5 years stood up and danced. Word spread. People came. The 12 chairs became 50, then 100, then 500. Within 6 months, Michael was no longer the empty pastor. He was the rising star of Lagos. He bought white suits and a golden cross. He called his church the Golden Cross Ministry. But the spirits were still hungry. Every year they demanded more blood. His uncle, his childhood friend, his former church drummer, one by one, people close to his heart disappeared. Michael told everyone they had travelled abroad or moved to other cities, but they were all in the church basement, feeding the darkness that gave him power. For 5 years, he lived this double life. Golden Cross Ministry grew into a megachurch. Michael became Pastor Michael Grace, the man who could heal anything, the man politicians visited, the man whose prayers could bring rain. But the darkness was never satisfied, and one day it asked for the ultimate sacrifice. Even monsters have hearts that break. It was Sarah's birthday when she called. Michael was in his big office, surrounded by awards and pictures with celebrities. He hadn't heard her voice in 2 years. "Michael," she said softly. The girls missed their father. Joy is graduating from university next month. Peace just got engaged. They want you there. Michael's eyes filled with tears. Despite everything, the power, the fame, the crowds, his heart was still empty without his family. "Can you forgive me?" he whispered into the phone. "Come home," Sarah said. "We can start again." They came back on a Tuesday evening. Sarah looked older but still beautiful. Joy had grown into a smart young woman, studying to be a doctor. Peace was radiant with love, showing off her engagement ring. For 2 weeks, Michael felt human again. They had dinner together. They laughed. They prayed as a family. The big house that had been silent for years was filled with life and love. Michael thought maybe he could stop. Maybe he could tell the spirits he was done. Maybe he could be happy with his family and forget about the darkness. He was wrong. On a Friday night, the whispers came. They spoke through the wind, through the shadows, through the mirror in his room. "You have grown fat on our power," they said. "You have forgotten the price. Payment is due." "I've given you enough," Michael said out loud, alone in his study. "Leave me alone." The room grew cold. The lights flickered. Papers flew around like angry birds. "You want to keep the power?" the voices asked. "You want to remain Pastor Michael Grace, the great healer? Then give us what we want." "What do you want?" Michael asked, though his heart already knew. "The 3 women sleeping in your house. Your wife, your daughters. Their blood carries your deepest love. Give them to us, and we will make you the greatest pastor in Africa." "No!" Michael screamed. "Never! They are my life." "Then lose everything," the voices hissed. "Tomorrow the whole world will know your secret. Your church will fall. Your name will become a curse. You will have nothing." The room went silent. Michael sat in the darkness, his head in his hands. He thought about his empty church before the power came. He thought about his brother's success. He thought about being nothing again. The hunger for greatness whispered in his ear like a snake. "Don't let them take away what you've built. You deserve to be great. You deserve to shine." That night, Michael didn't sleep. He walked around the house looking at his sleeping family. Sarah smiled in her dreams. Joy slept with her medical textbooks beside her. Peace had her phone next to her pillow, probably texting her fiancé. They trusted him. They loved him. They believed he was a good man, but the spirits were calling.
At 3 a.m., Michael made his choice. He went to his study and opened the black bag he hadn't touched in months. His hands shook as he held the knife.
"Forgive me," he whispered to the darkness. "Forgive me." What happened next in that house, in those quiet rooms, should never be spoken out loud. The details should be buried deep, where light cannot reach them. But when the sun rose, Pastor Michael Grace was alone again. The house was silent again. And 3 lives that had brought him joy were now feeding the spirits that gave him power. He wrapped them carefully in white church cloth, the same cloth he used to cover the altar during communion. He put them in the boot of his white Range Rover. He planned to bury them in a secret place outside the city, somewhere quiet where they could rest while he continued to build his empire of lies. But God, it seems, had other plans. The anonymous phone call that led to his arrest came from a neighbour who heard screaming in the night. The police checkpoint was random. The officer who insisted on checking the boot was just doing his job. Sometimes, even in the darkest stories, there is justice. Pastor Michael Grace sat in his prison cell wearing grey clothes instead of white suits. No golden cross around his neck, no crowds calling his name, no cameras or awards.
Just silence and the weight of what he had done. He had wanted to be great like his brothers. He had wanted people to respect him. He had wanted power that could move mountains. Instead, he got power that moved nothing but graves.
And in that small, cold cell, Michael finally understood the truth his father used to preach. Not all power comes from heaven, my son. Some comes from places so dark that once you go there, you can never find your way back to the light. The golden cross was buried with his victims. The white suits were burned. The megachurch was closed forever. But the story remains, a warning to anyone who thinks greatness is worth more than goodness, and power is worth more than love. Because sometimes the devil doesn't come with horns and fire. Sometimes he comes with a golden cross and a promise to make you great. Remember, true power comes from love, not blood. True greatness comes from serving others, not from being served. And the most dangerous enemy is not the one who attacks you from outside, but the one who whispers in your ear when you're alone and desperate. If this story touched your heart, like and share it. Subscribe for more stories that remind us what it means to be human.